where we really get into the details of some fascinating source material. Our goal, give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
And today, yeah, we're switching gears quite a bit. No policy papers or market reports this time?
No, none of that. Today is all about English fluency. We're doing a, let's say, strategic deep dive into 4, well, tiny but absolutely crucial phrases for sounding natural when you speak English.
That's exactly it. We know you, our listener, are looking for ways to improve your speaking, maybe get there a bit faster. And the source we're digging into today, let's call it the Daily Fluency Toolkit. It's really good for that.
Right, but we're not just going to read you definitions. That's not the point.
No. Our mission here is to take 4 super common phrases, ones that honestly intermediate learners often kind of trip over or just don't use enough and really break them down. We want you to feel confident using them, like, immediately.
Yeah, think of it like getting the inside playbook on how to sound more native, not just, technically correct. The source material, the toolkit, it does recommend things like repetition, spelling things out.
Which is great practice, definitely.
Absolutely. And we encourage you, the listener, maybe pause later and do that practice. But right now, our focus is on the strategy. When's the right time to use these? Why pick one phrase over another? What subtle message are you sending?
Exactly. We've picked out these 4 phrases because they were used in a very simple, very realistic conversation in our source material. They act like linguistic glue.
Linguistic glue, I like that.
Yeah, they hold ideas together, they help you shift topics smoothly, give examples, bring things to a conclusion. You master these 4, you've instantly boosted your conversational game.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So first, we'll quickly set the scene with that conversation from the source, get the context right. Then we'll tackle each phrase one by one and really unpack its power. Let's dive in.
Right, so the source material uses this very everyday scenario, a simple chat between 2 people, Tom and Lisa, just planning their weekend.
Low stakes, totally relatable. And that's often where you find the most useful, high-frequency vocabulary, actually.
True. So this dialogue, it gives us the perfect real-world example of how these 4 phrases actually work, how they function in a dynamic conversation.
And we're not just looking at, what they decided. We need to analyze the structure of how they talked. Every chat, even about weekend plans, kind of has stages, right? There's an opening.
Right. Then maybe a problem comes up.
Exactly. A suggestion, maybe some back and forth, and then hopefully an agreement or conclusion. These 4 phrases we're looking at, they're like the tools you use to navigate between those stages smoothly.
Okay, so let's quickly map out that conversation flow. Lisa starts things off, asks Tom about his weekend plans. Yep, the initiation.
And Tom, he presents the problem. His plans are, well, boring. He says maybe he'll just watch movies at home.
Which, let's be honest, doesn't sound thrilling. And that lack of excitement is Lisa's cue to jump in.
Right. And here's the tricky part for her, conversationally speaking. She needs to react to his kind of lame plan, but also pivot to suggest something better without sounding, rude or too abrupt.
And that pivot, that's exactly the job for our first phrase.
Got it. So she calls his plan boring, maybe a bit direct, but okay. And then she offers the alternative. Her cousin's got this small house near a lake.
A classic conversational move. Introduce a better option.
Tom's interested, naturally, but he needs details. What can we actually do there, he asks.
Which is fair enough. And this need for specifics, for examples, that triggers the use of our second phrase. Lisa gives a general answer first, lots of things, but she knows she needs to back that up.
Right, give some concrete examples to keep him hooked. So she mentions swimming, going for a walk.
Exactly, providing that evidence. Then they touch on another practical point. Who knows the area? If it's a new place, they don't want to get lost.
And that leads us to phrase number 3, the one about expertise. Lisa assures Tom it's all good because her cousin is the local expert. She uses this really handy idiom to say he's super knowledgeable.
Establishes credibility instantly. Yeah. Very efficient.
And finally, like in any real-life plan, there's a potential snag, the weather. Tom brings up the possibility of rain, a valid concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And dealing with that obstacle, weighing the risk of rain against the benefit of, well, not being bored stiff all weekend, that requires a summing up. A way to say what's most important here.
Which brings us perfectly to our 4th phrase, the wrap-up phrase. Tom agrees in the end, the plan's made, conversation done.
And what's really key here is how natural these 4 phrases make the whole exchange feel. You take them out, and it's just a series of slightly disconnected statements.
Yeah, kind of clunky.
Exactly. But with them, it flows. It's a smooth negotiation. They really are, like you said, the grease on the wheels of conversation. Mastering them is a serious shortcut to sounding more fluent.
Okay, great overview. Now let's pull these phrases out and put them under the microscope. Why are they so powerful? How do you use them right?
All right, let's get into the deep analysis. Now remember, the Source Toolkit emphasizes practice, slow repetition, even spelling things out. That really helps lock it in.
Definitely. So, as we introduce each phrase, we strongly encourage you, the listener, to pause the audio, say the phrase slowly yourself a few times. But for our discussion right now, we're going to focus more on the why and how, the strategic side of using them. Okay, first up, a real conversational heavyweight. You hear this all the time. The phrase is, by the way.
Linguistically, we'd call this a discourse marker. Fancy term, but basically its main job is to signal you're changing the topic slightly.
Or adding something extra, like an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe something related, but not, the absolute main point you were just discussing. It's like putting up a little verbal flag that says, okay, slight detour coming up.
Let's make sure everyone's got the pronunciation and structure clear. This is one you'll use a lot, so it's worth getting right. Repeat it slowly after me. By the way, pause. By the way, pause. Bye.
Good. And if you're writing it, the spelling is B-Y, new word, P-H-E, new word, W-A-Y.
By the way, so the basic definition from the toolkit is simple. We use this when we want to add something new to the talk.
But the real power, I think, is how it manages the conversation, how it manages the listener's expectations. If you just suddenly jump to a new topic without any warning.
It can feel jarring, yeah. Like, where did that come from?
Exactly. By the way, smooth that transition right out. It softens the shift.
So, quick question, though. Can you overuse it? Like, if I keep saying, by the way, every other sentence, does that just make me sound scattered?
That's a really good point. Yes, you absolutely can overuse it. If you're constantly pivoting with, by the way, it might signal that you're not very focused.
Right. It loses its impact.
It does. But used strategically, it's brilliant for two main things. Either dropping in a quick related bit of info you almost forgot.
Like, oh, by the way, the meeting's at 3, not 2.
Perfect example. Or, like Lisa did in the conversation, using it to make a deliberate, smooth pivot to a whole new idea.
Let's look at her usage again. Tom says, watching movies. That's the topic. Lisa immediately wants to counter that.
Right. So she says, that sounds boring, acknowledges his point, kind of dismisses it, then uses the phrase to introduce her alternative. By the way, my cousin has a small house near the lake.
It's a clean break, but it's polite.
Exactly. Imagine if she just said, that sounds boring, my cousin has a small house near the lake. It feels disconnected.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't really listening or just ignored his idea. By the way, bridges that gap.
Makes sense. It acknowledges what was just said, even while moving away from it.
And you see this a lot in professional contexts too, right? In emails, meetings, you might be deep in budget talk. Then someone says, by the way, did we confirm the venue for the conference?
Yeah. Lets you quickly touch on something else important without completely derailing the main conversation.
It's a great tool for managing the flow of information.
So maybe one more example. Like, I really enjoyed that presentation you gave. By the way, did you get my email about the follow-up?
Perfect. A related but secondary point introduced smoothly. Okay, ready for number 2?
Let's do it. Okay, our second phrase is absolutely essential when you want to make your point clearer, especially after you've made a general statement. The phrase is, for instance.
Right. Now, everyone knows, for example, obviously, and for instance basically means the same thing. But using from and to, for instance, can sometimes sound, well, a little more polished.
A bit more sophisticated, maybe?
Yeah, maybe a touch. It just adds a slightly different flavor to your speech. And if you're aiming for that next level of fluency, varying your vocabulary like this is key.
Good point. Okay, let's get the practice in for our listeners. Repeat slowly. For instance. Pause. For instance. Pause. For instance. Pause.
And the spelling for this one, F-O-R, new word, I-N-S-T-A-N-C-E, for instance.
So the definition is straightforward. This means, for example. Simple as that.
It is. Its job is to signal that you're about to provide specific illustrations or examples to back up a broader statement you just made. It makes abstract ideas concrete.
And that's exactly what Lisa needed to do, right? She said they could do lots of things at the lake house, which is pretty vague.
Very vague. If she had left it there, Tom might have thought lots of things, like what counting trees?
Huh, probably.
So when Tom asks what sort of things,
Well,
Lisa needs to be convincing. She uses, for instance, to frame her examples clearly.
her line was, lots of things. For instance, we can swim or go for a walk.
See how that works? General statement, lots of things. Signal phrase, for instance, specific examples. Swim or go for a walk. It validates her claim instantly.
It makes the idea much more appealing, too.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned, for example, is there really a difference in when you'd use one versus the other?
That's a good question. Functionally, they're pretty much interchangeable in most everyday conversations. You could swap them out and it would be fine.
Okay.
However, sometimes, maybe in more formal writing or speaking, for instance, can feel slightly more appropriate. It's subtle, though.
So maybe if you're giving a presentation and you want to sound particularly thoughtful when giving examples?
Yeah, something like that. If you said, our project faces several challenges, for instance, the budget allocation is insufficient and the timeline is very tight, it just sounds quite measured and analytical.
Got it. So maybe slightly more formal potential, but perfectly fine in casual chat, too.
Exactly. And another key point for fluency is where you put it. You can stick it mid-sentence, often between commas.
Like I enjoy outdoor activities, for instance, hiking and kayaking.
Perfect. Or you can start a whole new sentence with it.
We need to find ways to save money. For instance, we could reduce our travel expenses.
Right. That flexibility makes it easy to weave into your natural speaking rhythm. It's a fantastic tool for elaborating, for going beyond simple answers and really showing you can explain things clearly.
Absolutely vital for sounding articulate. Okay, moving into slightly trickier territory now.
Yep, time for an idiom. Okay, now we're getting into idioms. These can be challenging because the meaning isn't always obvious just from the individual words, but mastering them, that's where you really start sounding fluent.
Definitely. Idioms add color and cultural understanding to your speech.
So our third phrase is one that sounds a little unusual because of the repetition. It's know what's what.
Yeah, what's what?
Yeah.
It sounds a bit informal, maybe even slightly playful, but it's a super useful, very common idiom. It's basically a conversational shortcut.
A shortcut for what?
A shortcut for saying someone has really good practical knowledge about something. Like, they really understand the situation, the subject, the important details. They're experienced, they're clued in.
Okay, got it. Let's practice saying it. Pay attention to the rhythm. The what's what part is usually said quite quickly. Repeat slowly. Know what's what. Pause. Know what's what? Pause. Know what's what? Pause.
And the spelling, K-N-O-W, space, W-H-A-T, apostrophe S, space, W-H-A-T. Know what's what.
The toolkit definition is to understand things well or have good knowledge. Pretty straightforward.
True, but the feel of the idiom is important. It often suggests practical, hands-on expertise, not just theoretical knowledge from a book. It implies someone can tell the difference between what's important and what's not. They know this what from that what.
Ah, okay. That makes sense of the repetition, like they know all the different what's involved.
Exactly. That structure, repeating a word like that, often emphasizes completeness or thoroughness in English idioms.
Yeah.
You know, like saying someone knows the ins and outs of something.
Right. So back to Tom and Lisa. Tom was worried about being in an unfamiliar place by the lake. Lisa needed to reassure him.
Yep. And just saying, my cousin knows the area well is okay, but it's a bit flat.
Bland, yeah.
But when she says, my cousin really knows what's what about the area, he can show us the best places, that's much more convincing.
It implies he knows the cool spots, the hidden trails, maybe where to avoid, stuff like that.
Precisely. It paints a picture of real practical mastery. You instantly trust this cousin as a guide.
It's a great phrase. It feels much more natural and fluent than saying, my cousin possesses comprehensive local knowledge.
Definitely. Nobody talks like that in real life, saying he knows what is efficient, clear, and makes you sound like you've got a good handle on conversational English.
Can you give another example?
Sure. Maybe if you want advice on fixing your bike, talk to Sarah. She really knows what's what when it comes to mechanics.
Perfect. It assigns expertise quickly and conversationally. Any pitfalls with this one?
Well, maybe just one small thing. It's usually used to praise someone else's knowledge. If you say, oh, I know, what about this? It could sound a little boastful, depending on the context and your tone.
Ah, okay. So maybe use it more often to compliment others.
Generally, yeah, that's safer and sounds more natural. But using it effectively shows you understand these nuances. It's a powerful little idiom.
Great. Okay, on to our final phrase.
All right, our fourth and final phrase for this deep dive. This one is all about summary and finality. It's a big gun in conversation. The phrase is, at the end of the day.
Ooh, yeah, you hear this one a lot, especially when people are trying to make a concluding point or state what's ultimately most important.
Exactly. It's like a verbal marker signaling, okay, after considering everything, here's the bottom line. Here's the main takeaway. It cuts through the details.
Let's get the practice in. This one's a bit longer. Repeat slowly. At the end of the day, pause.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day,
Pause. The end of the day.
pause.
Good rhythm. And spelling. A-T space. T-H-E space. E-N-D space. O-F space. T-H-E space D-A-Y at the end of the day.
The definition from the toolkit. We use this to say the most important thing after thinking about the matter.
Right. But again, there's a bit more to it culturally. It often implies a kind of pragmatic conclusion, maybe even a slightly philosophical one. It's about identifying the fundamental truth or priority after all the discussion or debate.
Where does it come from? Any ideas?
Well, the exact origin is a bit hazy, but the feeling is one of final reckoning. Like, after all the transactions or events of the day are done, what's the final result? Some link it to accounting, closing the books for the day.
Makes sense. That feeling of finality of summing things up.
And that's why it's so powerful rhetorically. Think about business meetings or even political debates. Someone might list lots of complicated factors, pros and cons.
And then someone else jumps in with, at the end of the day, what really matters is X.
Precisely. It's a way to impose a single overriding priority. To say, let's cut through the noise. This is the crucial point.
So in the Tom and Lisa chat, Tom brought up the rain, a potential downside.
A valid detail, yeah. Lisa acknowledges it. She says, that's true. She doesn't ignore his point.
But then she uses the phrase to pivot to the main benefit.
Right. She says, that's true, but at the end of the day, it's better than staying inside all weekend. She's weighing the minor risk, rain, against the major goal, avoiding boredom and declaring the goal the winner.
It's the ultimate argument, closer in a way.
It often functions that way, yes. It signals, okay, discussion over, this is the fundamental point.
Now, by the way, can you overuse this one too?
Oh, absolutely. And it can be even more annoying if overused. If you drop, at the end of the day, constantly, or too early in a discussion.
It sounds like you're just shutting down the conversation, like you haven't really listened.
Exactly. It can come across as dismissive, like a verbal ITIC people use when they can't be bothered with the details anymore. You have to earn the right to use it, usually after some discussion has actually happened.
So save it for when you are genuinely summarizing or making that final crucial point.
Precisely. Let's think of another example. Maybe parents discussing chores for their kids. They could debate fairness, schedules, allowances.
And then one says, look, we can argue about the details, but at the end of the day, they need to learn responsibility.
Perfect. It refocuses the conversation on the core principle. Mastering this phrase gives you a powerful tool for summarizing and showing you can identify the most important takeaway.
Fantastic. 4 really useful phrases. Now let's talk about putting them into practice and really cementing them.
Okay, so we've explored for instance, know what's what, and at the end of the day, we understand what they mean, roughly when to use them.
Right. And the source material, that daily fluency toolkit, it used some Q&A after the conversation to check basic comprehension. Like, did Lisa invite Tom to the beach? No, the lake house, stuff like that.
Which is fine for basic recall.
Yeah.
But for fluency, for really using these phrases effectively, we need to go a bit deeper, right? Think about the strategic choices involved.
Totally agree. Let's use that Tom and Lisa conversation not just for plot points, but to think about why the specific phrases were used and what alternatives might have sounded like, or common mistakes learners might make.
Good idea. Let's start with that pivot Lisa made using... By the way, she went from, that sounds boring, to the lake house suggestion. What if a learner tried to use a word they learned from a book? Maybe something like incidentally.
Oh, interesting. That sounds boring. Incidentally, my cousin has a small house. How does that land?
It sounds off, doesn't it? Incidentally does signal a change of topic, but it feels much more formal, almost attached. In a casual chat between friends about weekend plans, it would likely sound quite stiff and unnatural.
Yeah, it breaks the flow. By the way, it just fits that casual, friendly vibe much better. It's smoother.
Exactly. It highlights that choosing the right register, the right level of formality, is crucial for fluency. By the way, it's super flexible for these quick social shifts.
Okay, good point. What about, for instance, Lisa used it after saying lots of things to give examples like swimming and walking. What's a common mistake here?
A really common one is getting the order wrong. Learners might list the examples first and then try to use for instance afterwards.
Like saying, we can swim or go for a walk, for instance. There are lots of things to do.
Exactly. And that just confuses the listener. The whole point of, for instance, or for example, is that they act as a signpost before the examples arrive. They signal, get ready, specifics are coming.
So the rule is pretty firm. General idea first, then the signal phrase, for instance, then the specific examples.
Absolutely. Getting that sequence right makes your explanations so much clearer and more effective.
Okay, now the idiom. Know what's what. Lisa used it to boost her cousin's credibility as a guide. What if she just said something plain, like, my cousin is very knowledgeable about the area?
It's grammatically correct, of course, but it lacks punch, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of dull.
Knowledgeable could mean he read a Wikipedia page. Knows what's what, as we discussed, implies that practical, real-world, maybe even slightly insider expertise. It adds color, confidence, and a layer of cultural fluency.
So using the idiom isn't just about vocabulary. It's about showing you understand how native speakers express that kind of experienced competence.
Precisely. It signals a deeper level of language mastery.
Great distinction. And finally, at the end of the day, Lisa used it to trump the rain concern. What if she'd used a less forceful concluding phrase? Maybe something like, ultimately, I suppose it's better than staying inside.
Ultimately is a fine word, but it sounds much softer, maybe more tentative. At the end of the day, it has a weight to it, a decisiveness.
Like, I've considered the options, and this is the final verdict.
Exactly that. It projects more certainty and authority. Lisa needed to be decisive there to convince Tom. Ultimately, might have left the door open for more debate about the weather. At the end of the day, it kind of slams that door shut on the minor objections.
So the choice of phrase really affects the persuasive power.
Immensely. And that ties into what the source material emphasized about practice, particularly repetition and shadowing.
Right. Shadowing, meaning listening and repeating, trying to copy the intonation and rhythm.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not enough just to know the words. You need to practice saying, at the end of the day, with that slightly emphatic concluding tone. Or saying, by the way, with a light transitional feel.
If you say, at the end of the day, really fast and uncertainly, it just doesn't work, does it?
Not at all. The delivery, the melody of the phrase, is part of its meaning, part of its strategic function. Shadowing helps you internalize that music of the language.
So the path to fluency here isn't just memorizing definitions. It's about understanding the strategy, practicing the delivery, and making these phrases automatic, natural parts of your own speech.
That's the core message from the Daily Fluency Toolkit, absolutely. Active, mindful practice of these kinds of high-utility phrases is how you bridge that gap between just understanding English and actually speaking it confidently and effectively. #OutTradJob.
Well, that was a really focused deep dive, wasn't it? We've really put 4 seemingly simple phrases under the microscope.
Yeah, but hopefully shown that they're actually powerful tools for communication when you understand how and when to use them properly.
Absolutely. We've looked at how they manage conversations, add clarity, signal expertise, and deliver those crucial final points.
So just to quickly recap those 4 key tools you now have in your Fluency Toolkit.
First up, by the way, that's your go-to for smoothly changing the subject or adding a quick related thought. Really versatile.
Second, for instance, a slightly more polished way to say, for example, perfect for backing up your general statements with clear, specific evidence.
Third, the idiom. Know what's what. Your conversational shortcut for saying someone has real practical expertise and understanding shows cultural fluency too.
And number 4, at the end of the day, use this one carefully. It's your powerful concluding phrase to summarize arguments and state the ultimate priority or bottom line.
So you're not just leaving this deep dive with definitions. You've got strategic insights into making your spoken English sound much more natural and persuasive.
And we really do encourage you to follow the advice from the source material. Practice these, repeat them, try shadowing them, listen for them when native speakers talk. But let's add one final thought, something to take away and chew on.
Okay, a challenge.
Kinda. We want you to think about applying this strategically. Imagine you have to use just one of these 4 phrases in a real conversation this week. Maybe it's a slightly tricky situation, a meeting at work, discussing plans with friends where opinions differ, maybe even a small presentation.
So pick just one phrase.
Yep. Which one would you choose? And more importantly, why? What specific effect would you be trying to achieve by using it in that situation?
Would you use, by the way, to gently steer a conversation? Or, for instance, to make your argument more concrete? Maybe know what to subtly praise a colleague? Or drop it in audiences at the end of the day to try and finalize a decision.
Think about the context, the goal, and the precise impact you want that phrase to have. Moving from just knowing these phrases to strategically deploying them, that's the real step towards fluency. Start thinking about it. Maybe even try it out.
Great final thought. The time to move from theory to practice is definitely now.
Absolutely. Happy practicing.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.